Week 5, the Cavalier Insider pregame show. Andrew Ramspacher joined by Jerry Ratcliffe. Counting down to kickoff, Virginia and Kent State. Game time 3:30 on Saturday at Scott Stadium as the Cavaliers come in at 2-2. Kent State, the Golden Flashes, will come to Charlottesville at 0-3, still in search of their first win, coming off of a bye week, also coming off of a 66-0 loss to Ohio State in Columbus. Virginia, meanwhile, coming off of another inspiring effort, but a loss at BYU, 41-33. Cavaliers were a 2-touchdown underdog and made that thing really competitive. We're actually winning at halftime, won the total yards battle by almost 200 yards, won time of possession, had more first downs. A couple things that led to BYU's win. Virginia had 2 crucial turnovers, Grayson Lambert or apparently fumbling. There's some debate there on a 4th and 1 sneak in the second half. Then there's also some failed red zone opportunities that led to just field goals from Ian Fry, which Virginia could have had at one point, a significant lead in that first half, but they can't really convert when they got inside the 5-yard line. So UVA now at 2-2, both losses to ranked teams by a combined 16 points. So you throw that in there, those losses, Hootie, with a big win over a Louisville team that was number 21 in the country when they played Virginia, a dominating win over a Richmond team who many believe will make the playoffs in the FCS, the lower level. To this point, I think coaches, players are pretty happy with the progress. Surprised you where they are through 4 games?
A little bit. I thought they would be much better this year, and I knew the defense was going to be really good. The offense I wasn't quite so sure about. The offensive line apparently is starting to solidify, and Lambert, once he established himself in there, he seems to be pretty darn good, consistent, and a fairly smart player. I guess the offense last week really came alive, and I guess that's the key to this team as to whether it can keep producing and give them a chance to beat some of these teams that they're pretty even with.
Yeah, certainly that Virginia defense, you said, kind of carried that team for those first 3 weeks. But then the offense on Saturday at BYU, over 500 yards of offense. I thought the receivers played really well. There's some issues about, besides Darius Jennings, who can really take the top off this defense or opposing defenses and really stretch the field. But the possession guys, Miles Gooch, Andre Lavroni, Cannon Severin, Donnie Dowling have done a really good job just showing hands. Virginia fans waiting forever to watch a game and don't see a bunch of drops. This receiving core, I get a lot of credit to Marcus Higgins. I think he's done a really good job of improving those guys. That's been a big part, I think, of the offense improvement. At least last week, let's see if they can put together for consecutive weeks, and obviously leading up to Pitt next week would be huge because that way Virginia could have that balance. Defensively, it was its worst game of the season against BYU. That being said, it wasn't a bad performance. BYU was held to its lowest yards total of the season. Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback Taysom Hill was held to his lowest output of the year. So overall, it was a decent Virginia defensive performance. However, it didn't create any takeaways. Obviously, UVA led the country in takeaways going into last week, was not able to force a fumble or interception. So that was kind of the biggest flaw with that UVA defense out in Provo, I should say. So maybe this team is bouncing up in the right place. And before we dive into the matchup with Kent State, which we'll get to it in another segment, just you look at the ACC as a whole, especially that coastal side, and it is so up in the air right now. What are Virginia's chances, considering they likely win Saturday and then heading into a big game next week against Pitt?
Well, I think they have a good chance, as good as anybody else right now. Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech seems like they have a little defensive issue, but other than that, they're putting points on the board. Virginia Tech's all over the map. Yep. Carolina didn't look so good last weekend.
Yeah,
Pitt could, like you mentioned, Pitt could be a huge game next week. Mm-hmm. In Miami, you never know about. But the thing Virginia has to do is they've got to win, show that they can win some of these close games instead of just coming close.
Yeah.
And that's why Pitt is so important, because I think on paper they look about even.
Right.
And they've got to win another close game like that. They showed they could do it against Louisville, but they got to do it again. You can't just come close. And I think it's wide open. They don't face another Heisman Trophy candidate until they face the Heisman Trophy winner last year. So maybe that'll help out a little bit. But I think they've got a good as chance as anybody right now to win in the Coastal.
So before Virginia kind of dives into league play, still one more game out of conference, takes on Kent State on Saturday. We'll be back with a breakdown of that game and some predictions after this. All right, welcome back. Time to break down Virginia and Kent State game on Saturday at 3:30. Andrew Ramspacher, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe as Cavaliers wrap up non-conference play, taking on the winless Golden Flashes. Some storylines to kind of look at this. It's not definitely not as juicy as the first 4 weeks when you had UCLA coming to town and Brett Hundley. The next week you had Michael Rocco, Michael Strauss coming to town, a couple of ex-Cavalier quarterbacks. The next week it was the first league game against the new league rival and cross-division opponent, Louisville. Obviously last week traveled to BYU, a team that many are thinking has an outside chance to maybe, I don't know about cracking the college football playoff, but certainly being in those New Year's bowl games, those Big Six bowl games down the line. So there's that huge opportunity there for Virginia to win. It did not, obviously losing just by 8 points. This week, not a whole lot. I think, like Coach London and these players have said, it's more about them this week, how they kind of evaluate themselves, how they can progress heading into league play. Next week, obviously, when Pitt comes to town for a night kickoff at Scott Stadium, should be a pretty good atmosphere there. But first thing first, against Kent State, again, 0-3. They've averaged just 9 points a game on the year. This is not exactly Ball State, the last MAC team that came to Charlottesville, which Virginia had a lot of trouble with. That Ball State team went on to win, I believe, 10 games. Had a really good quarterback in Keith Wenning. Had a pretty good receiver there in Snead. So this is a little different. Some storylines to keep track of. Grayson Lambert hurt his ankle against BYU last Saturday as of Wednesday. Still kind of up in the air whether he play. If he doesn't play, Matt Johns obviously has shown he's capable of coming in there and doing some things. So, all things considered, this should be a breeze for Virginia. I'm going to say the Cavaliers win this thing 45-9. Kent State will get a couple field goals in there, maybe 3 field goals, maybe one late. But I don't see them crossing the goal line. Kent State was shut out in Columbus. It'd be a good gauge to see where Virginia's defense is against Ohio State. So I think they're pretty comparable. Virginia might have a slight edge with the speed rush they can have from the outside. So, good little tune-up for the Cavaliers. I think they win easily and then start prepping for what should be a huge week next week, taking on Pitt.
Mike London said if Lambert's not 100%, he's not going to play, and I think that's a smart decision considering that they're playing Kent State because Matt Johns is certainly capable of leading this team to victory in a game like that or even against a better opponent, but especially against a winless opponent. I think Virginia's defense is going to pitch a shutout this week.
There you go.
I really do. Those guys are – I just think that they're ready to do that. And Kent State hasn't shown much proficiency in the scoring department. I was impressed that they were able to rush for 192 yards, I think it was, against BYU. So I think they're going to actually, even though I know coaches say they go one game at a time and they're not going to overlook Kent State, but I think their minds are kind of going to be on Pitt because it's such a huge game. I think they're going to be working on stuff against Kent State that they might can use to beat Pitt if they can beat Pitt. But I think they can name their score. I was going to say 45-0, so you got me by 9 points there.
There you go. So that'll be the thing. That's one of the intriguing storylines to look out for. Will Kent State score to make me look right as opposed to Hootie? Now keep in mind, last time Virginia did pitch a shutout. It was early in the year in 2013 against a VMI team. I think Kent State a little bit better than VMI. Let's not give them, let's not put them down too much, but certainly Virginia better in 2014 than they were in 2013. So certainly a shutout is possible. So what happened, we'll find out on Saturday. Until then, Andrew Ramspacher, Hootie Ratcliffe. Thanks for watching.